I welcome you all to the first working session of Day 2 at the International Conference on South Asia and Regional Connectivity in the 21st Century. Today we will be focusing on regional connectivity and Afghanistan. In the 21st century, the dynamics of regional connectivity have played paramount importance, shaping geopolitical landscapes and fostering collaboration among nations. Today, we will explore the crucial role of Afghanistan in this context, ranging from stability and instability under Taliban rule and to security dilemmas affecting regional connectivity. Our esteemed speakers will provide diverse perspectives that promise to enrich our understanding of the regional dynamics and the intricate tapestry of connectivity in the South Asian landscape. To guide us through this insightful session, it is my honor to introduce the former chairperson of the Department of International Relations at the University of Karachi, Professor Dr. Talat Wizarat, who will be chairing this session. Our first speaker has delved into the complexities of Afghanistan under Taliban stability and instability paradox. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ellinor Zeino, the regional representative of Konrad-Adenauer Foundation's regional program Southwest Asia based in Tashkent. Moving forward, our second speaker will shed light on the Afghanistan security dilemma, implications on regional connectivity in Central South Asia. Welcoming Dr. Mukhid Asanbayev, the Chief Expert of the Department of International Security at the Kazakhstan Institute of Strategic Studies under the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Next in line, we have a presentation on the prospect of extending CPEC to Afghanistan, a study based on fieldwork, by Alexander Wang, who will be joining this session online. Mr. Wang is Associate Professor from the Center for China's Overseas Interest Studies, School of International Relations and Public Affairs. Lastly, Mr. Sulaiman bin Shah will also be joining us online. His topic will be Landlocked or Land Bridge, Afghanistan and South Asia Connectivity in 2023. He is the former Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Afghanistan. Now, without further ado, let us commence this session. I kindly request Professor Dr. Talat Wizarat to take the stage and guide us through the proceedings. Thank you.
I'm extremely grateful to the Department of International Relations and Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung for helping the department to organize this seminar. Actually, I look forward to a very stimulating and a very interesting seminar. I have done some work on connectivity and how it can bring peace to the world, but you know, nothing is simple in the world today. There are so many complexities. Now this wonderful idea of connecting the world, and I give credit to the Chinese government for starting this in a big way. Now there are counter ideas also. So we have to understand all the ideas and see what best can be made of those ideas and how our country, Pakistan, is very strategically placed. We can benefit a lot from all these schemes, and but it's up to us. It's up to our governments. It's up to our civil society, universities, think tanks to make the best of this opportunity. So thank you very much for attending this seminar, and I would like to request the first speaker, Dr. Ellinor Zeino. I'm sorry if I mispronounce names. I'm not very good in the pronunciation part, but I'll do my best to pronounce them as close to the reality as possible. Thank you.
Good morning. My pleasure to see you for our second day. And it's a pleasure to talking today on Afghanistan. And after having discussed in yesterday's panels the conceptual ideas and the benefits of regional connectivity, I would like to draw now your attention to a very special case of international connectivity. Afghanistan is a case which has been internationally and regionally interconnected in the worst conceivable ways, by proxy wars and by foreign occupation. In the last year of the Republic, we had military troops from more than or almost 40 countries in Afghanistan and an aid economy funded by more than 80 countries and international organizations. So Afghanistan was an internationally interconnected war zone. When I speak about the stability-instability paradox in Afghanistan under the Taliban, I would like to share my experience and observations from my times living in Kabul, living in Afghanistan from 2018 until the Taliban takeover in 2021, and as well from my latest travels to Kabul in August and July this year. Rarely has been a military takeover of Afghanistan as smooth as in 2021. Within a couple of weeks, the Taliban took over the country without much resistance. They took over Kabul within a couple of hours. After 2 decades of war, today, overland roads are safe. Daily terrorist attacks have ceased or decreased and still remain as a much lower level. The state of war has ended. The general security situation has improved. Also surprisingly, despite international sanctions, the lack of diplomatic recognition, frozen Afghan assets, and a restricted international banking sector, the new government has been able to secure the stability of the Afghan currency, keep government functions and services running, secure the collection of tax and customs revenues. Corruption has noticeably decreased and administrative regulations are applied. Infrastructure has been visibly repaired. So what are the reasons for the Taliban's success at the first sight? Back in Kabul this year, one Taliban official told me that they have not won the war because they were militarily superior, but because the Afghan elites and also the international forces had lost the hearts and minds of the Afghan people. A key reason for the smooth takeover of the Taliban was that the Taliban had infiltrated the state and society of the Afghan Republic many, many years before the takeover in 2021. Over the last 20 years, the Taliban had successfully built up a countrywide shadow governance network that provided services to the people, such as mobile court system or a relief system for victims of war. And they were very smart in constructing an image of being an anti-elite movement for the simple people, and for the simple people who never had access to the benefits of the international engagement. So they could fill the gap of a corrupt and absent state that the corrupt and absent state had left behind. And so this is the success story of the Taliban, but there's a second side to the story. And unfortunately, other developments give cause for great concern. First of all, the economic and humanitarian situation remains uncertain and deteriorates steadily. Large sections of society, and most notably women, of course, remain excluded from political power or economic opportunities. The education sector, which is the backbone of development, has been largely restricted for women and also lost most of its qualified teachers. Various armed groups and extremist groups are still present and active in Afghanistan, most notably the Islamic State affiliate ISKP. However, the main security challenge for the new government will be demography. Afghanistan has one of the youngest societies in the world. The majority of the people is under 18 years old. The new Afghan generation is globally connected and informed and has enjoyed secular education throughout the last 20 years. For the new Taliban government, it will be very difficult to offer the non-Pashtun Tajik sections of the society and the young generation viable future perspectives. So there is a young Afghan generation growing up in frustration and partly also maybe in radicalization. It is the young non-Pashto generation where the Taliban will face their strongest security challenge in the long term. Surveys have shown that the Islamic State affiliate ISKP recruits its members amongst the Afghan urban educated middle class, as well as from former Afghan National Defense and Security Forces. In the early days, ISKP also recruited among TTP splinter groups which had been fleeing the Pakistani tribal areas. In contrast to the Pashto-dominated Taliban movement, ISKP is largely composed of Afghan Tajiks as well as South and Central Asian members. ISKP offers membership beyond ethnic, tribal, and family loyalties, and this makes it potentially attractive for the young and non-Pashto parts of society. So what are the current local views on the current situation in Afghanistan? The situation and living conditions have always differed throughout the country. Today we receive only little information that reflects the complexity of the country. One point is interesting. Local demands from Afghan citizens inside Afghanistan are much more pragmatic than those of the quite opinionated and strongly anti-Taliban diaspora. Local Afghans from Afghanistan call for more international engagement because they hope for a gradual change of their situation. The main grievance from the people, Afghan people in Afghanistan, and I dare only speaking of the Afghan people in Kabul because I haven't been traveled to the provinces recently. The main grievance is lack of economic and future perspectives. Many people have lost their jobs and their income which they generated during the times of the international engagement. The second main grievance is the restrictions of the education sector. For women, of course, but also the dismantlement of the quality of education due to the lack of skilled teachers. And this leaves families and the young generation without future perspectives, and this will remain a push factor for migration. Also interestingly is that large parts of the Taliban movement also reject the restrictions on the education sector. In Kabul, we still have informal schools for girls that continue with a tacit agreement of the Taliban officials. Private teachers are hard to find because also Taliban leaders hire teachers for their daughters. And today, even prominent Taliban leaders openly criticize the emir's decree on the education restrictions. So now coming to an end and coming back to the question of regional connectivity and the security-insecurity dilemma, I think that we have to recognize that the case, for example, the case of ISKP shows that young, urbanized, educated, and globally connected people do not necessarily follow liberal cosmopolitan ideas. Afghanistan risks to have two lost generations, one inside Afghanistan and one in exile. The neighbor countries, Europe, the international community would be wise not to neglect the fate of the Afghan people in or outside Afghanistan. To my opinion, humanitarian aid, evacuation, and international resettlement programs do not offer a sustainable solution for the Afghan people. Turning Afghanistan from an international war economy and a buffer zone into a trade and transit hub, providing economic perspectives beyond drug economy, would be one positive and more sustainable example of regional connectivity. Thank you very much.
We had a very stimulating paper on this subject. May I now request Dr. Bukit Azanbayev. He's from Kazakhstan, Republic of Kazakhstan, and he'll enlighten us on some dimension of this connectivity possibility program.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. So, Afghanistan is a security dilemma. It has implications on regional connectivity in Central Asia and South Asia. It's a key factor to achieving connectivity between two regions, South and Central Asia, which have complementary economies actually, which means that they do not compete with each other. For energy-rich, landlocked Central Asia, connectivity with South Asia means an access to capacious market of South Asian countries. For energy-scarce South Asia, such connection provides an access to Central Asia's natural resources, as well as the opening of a new transit routes to the world market. At the same time, the anticipated connectivity of the two regions will be possible only after the establishment of the long-term peace and stability in Afghanistan. And prospects for achieving this goal depends not only on ensuring security, there are much more different and diverse problems in Afghanistan. And it depends on many other circumstances, such as rule of law, so all these narratives that do exist in regard to Taliban government, human rights, economic well-being, and especially Afghanistan's commitment to entry into the path of sustainable development. With the advent of the Taliban to power in Afghanistan, the new authorities consolidated generally their grip over the war-torn country. They succeeded in monopolizing power, sidelining many ethnic and political groups. However, the activities of a number of terrorist groups above mentioned, for example by Dr. Zeino, and you know their names very well in your region. So the activities of a number of terrorist groups beyond Taliban control is still a serious challenge to political stability of the country and to the security of Central Asia and South Asia. The main areas of concern here are attempts by terrorist groups to use Afghanistan territory to plan and carry out attacks towards neighboring countries. So the continued presence of Al-Qaeda Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, TTP, Islamic State Khorasan, and other groups is a key factor in the export of instability from Afghanistan to the neighboring countries. So the situation and risk of destabilizing neighboring countries, it's just one of the options. Central Asian experts on international security worrying over the activities of the Afghanistan-based Islamic State Khorasan, and there are also little and underground extremist groups such as Jama'at Ansarullah, Union of Islamic Jihad, Katibat Imam al-Bukhari, but nobody knows. Do they really exist in a description as they used to be on the mass media? Of specific interest is the question of whether they are under Taliban control, actually. At least it remains unknown whether they coordinate the activities with the Taliban in Afghanistan or not. At the same time, the main threat to the Afghan authorities comes from Islamic State Khorasan, ISK. So it openly opposes the Taliban regime and Central Asian countries, collaborating with Kabul. They also target local Hazari Sufi communities, and they are destabilizing the core destabilizing factor for Afghanistan. So their attacks undermine the legitimacy of Taliban back at Afghanistan and oppose the Taliban's assurances that country will not become a haven for terrorist groups. Taking advantage of the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, ISIS Khorasan plays a decisive role in the radicalization of ethnic minorities and seeks to expand the geography of the activities to include people originating from Central Asia. So this is happening because of the untold or unspoken policy of discrimination of ethnic minorities in Afghanistan and the Taliban regime. So this is everything that Dr. Zeino mentioned. It's highly likely to be happen in the future because of. So I think there is no need to give you a detailed depiction of these groups because you must be much more aware of this situation here. One thing I should just, I try to be brief. So we are talking about the risk of emergence of cross-border terrorism from Afghanistan, which is highly scrutinized area of concern for Central Asian security experts. For example, we are keeping close watch on studying TTPs, namely on its deployment to Pakistan and over developments around fatwa issued in Kandahar, allowing jihad against Pakistan, so many things. Taking into consideration the recent agreement between Islamabad and Kabul regarding TTP, we think it remains fragile, unpredictable. So the experts concerned with ISIS Khorasan potential, they are warning that potential to adopt TTP's tactics in relation to Afghanistan and Central Asia from ISIS Khorasan. The risk of non-conventional financing of the terrorism and financial flows related to the opium market in Afghanistan. Terrorism in Afghanistan, terrorism which is out of Taliban control together. So all of them is financed not only through charity, but also through drug trafficking, cryptocurrency, trade in gold and lapis lazuli. Dry opium is often used as a currency in Afghanistan and border areas through the informal Hawala money transfer system. In northern Afghanistan, the city of Mazar-i-Sharif has become a major financial center and home to a number of Hawalas that are able to make financial transactions, both licit and illicit, within Afghanistan and to international destination. Because of the general stability of Mazar-i-Sharif, it has become the financial center unofficially. So the situation with the production of opium, narcotic drugs, and drug trafficking in Afghanistan remains a subject of special attention. According to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, southern Afghanistan saw a decline in opium cultivation in 2023, in line with Taliban promises. However, this led not only to an increase in the price of opium and heroin, opium prices that have increased, with profits being seen mainly by large farmers and traffickers estimated at 1.2 billion. Taxation rates of 5 to 7% for poppy farmers remained in place, while the Taliban are benefiting from increased taxes on opium in some districts from 600 Afghanis to 800 Afghanis for each kilogram trafficked through Kang district, Nimroz province bordering Iran. So it's another part of problems. Meanwhile, the political leadership of Central Asian countries is concerned. Why I'm talking about the threats, risk? We are talking about Afghanistan as a bridge to connect two regions, South Asia and Central Asia. But before we should secure Afghanistan itself, because if you want to secure connectivity, you make first step is a stable Afghanistan. So political leadership of the Central Asian countries concerned also about Afghanistan plans for the construction of the Kushtipa Canal, on Amu Darya River. It is estimated that the canal will take approximately 16 of the Amu Darya flow. However, the question of how much water is formed in the Afghan part of the Amu Darya basin remains open, as there is no reliable information on this matter. With reference to the words of the former Afghan Minister of Water Resources, it can be noted that approximately a fifth of the Amu Darya flow is formed in Afghanistan. So Central Asian countries have diverse views on Koshtipa. Some countries advocate for taking a hard line. They are a minority. According to them, the project will have political and demographic consequences that may cause internal migration in downstream countries in Central Asia. As the countries argue for provision of regional and international agreements to attempt to establish limits to this activity, they make up majority. So I'm especially not mentioning which countries for and against, because there is no need. It's over no use, actually. You probably know which countries are urging for debates for peaceful negotiation, which are strictly against. So basically, most of Central Asian countries express goodwill and understanding regarding the construction of the Kushtipa Canal. But how long will they keep this stance if Afghanistan will not be ready to compromise? This country hasn't signed the Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Water Courses and International Lakes, adopted in 1992, nor the 2003 Almaty Declaration of Landlocked Developing Countries. So this country, since it's not recognized, still illegal, actually. So they have their own arguments. So continued armed resistance, insecurity, and fragmentation within Afghanistan, extremist and terrorist undergrounds threaten the regime stability in Afghanistan. Second, Taliban movement should start the process of change from within, which means transforming from an insurgency to a major political power within a broad and nationwide agenda beyond the Pashtun discourse. It must be all. So this is what we call an inclusive government. Otherwise, the process of building effective governance in Afghanistan has an uncertain future. Government structures and institutions will face an even greater loss of human capital. The failure of Afghan government institutions to function will have dire consequences for civil service, health care, education, employment, and other services, and will encourage mass immigration from the country. So basically, most of Afghan immigrants now are living in bordering Pakistan and Iran. Iran is much more worried about Afghan refugees rather than some transboundary or river disputes over the river between Iran and Afghanistan. So border clashes with neighbors, third one, and cross-border conflicts. Attacks from Afghanistan toward neighboring countries from terrorist groups and elements both affiliated and not with the Taliban causes permanent instability in the Afghan borderlands. Regardless of reason for Taliban's instability or unwillingness to maintain stability in the border areas, one must mention that instability at the border crossings and cross-border communication channels increases the risk of border conflicts between Afghanistan and neighboring states of Central and South Asia. So should Afghanistan view the Kushtaba project as a lever of pressure on the countries of Central Asia, then in the future this arena strategy could become a big obstacle in forging mutual trust and respect in Central Asian-Afghanistan relation. Summarizing all of this, we must state that the only way to link Central and South Asia economically is the maintenance of stability and peace in Afghanistan. In this regard, let's consider the main areas briefly of cooperation between Afghanistan and its neighbors in Central and South Asia, necessary to achieve regional connectivity between the two regions. So this is an optimistic portion of my speech for today. So current potential, it has a tremendous perspective for interaction in the regions of Central and South Asia. Regional connectivity of Central and South Asia via Afghanistan has tremendous perspective, especially in the areas of trade, economic, transport, logistics, and energy cooperation. The list of energy infrastructure projects that currently under construction to connect the two regions is inspiring. So you know all of them about Tapi gas pipeline, it's with a capacity of 33 billion cubic meters. It should run from Turkmen-Galkanesh gas field to Afghan cities of Herat, Kandahar, Pakistani Quetta and Multan to city of Fazlika in western India. So construction on the Turkmen section began in December 2015, and the construction works on Afghan section of the gas pipeline was laid in February 2018. The Asian Development Bank, European Bank of Reconstruction, and other institutions like Saudi Development Fund and others announced their intention to participate in financing TAPI. So TAPI is almost ready. An important project is the construction of high voltage power lines along the Turkmenistan-Afghanistan-Pakistan road. According to Turkmen experts, with whom I just had an opportunity to talk, they say Turkmen side has already completed the construction of a road for transmitting electricity to Kabul along the road from the Mari state in Turkmenistan to the Watan hydroelectric station and from the Afghan city of Mazar-e-Sharif to Kabul. The Afghan side plans to complete work on its side within the next 2 years. Another notable step, has been made in this field is the Central Asia-South Asia Electricity Transmission Project, which is more widely known as the CASA 1000 abbreviation. Yeah? So it's the largest electricity transmission project from Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan to Afghanistan and Pakistan at 1,270 kilometers long. Trans-Afghan Railway, it's a 573 kilometer rail. So this is a railway connecting Uzbekistan with Afghanistan and northern Pakistan, the city of Peshawar. The railway line will help solve the lack of physical infrastructure connecting Central and South Asia. So Uzbekistan, as you know, is a core country in Central Asia. This country is making everything to get along with the modern Afghan government, taking into consideration that ethnic Uzbeks are also making up some part of the Afghan minorities, together with Tajiks and others. So Uzbekistan is a key partner. It might become key partner because it's a severely landlocked country. It depends on an access of market, and Tashkent is ready for any costs, for any expenditures to build, to construct direct way to the sea, whether it is through Afghanistan or Iran. So, in conclusion, I want to pay your attention to the following. The involvement of Afghanistan in the process of the regional and inter-regional integration through strengthening economic and trade ties with the countries of Central and South Asia depends on many factors. But first, it's up to Afghanistan authorities' capability and willingness to ensure security both in the country and beyond, in the borderland areas. And at the same time, the transformation of Afghanistan into a stable and peaceful state, free of threats to anyone, must become a strategic priority for the entire international community. So what I've seen here, and not only here, but in other places where experts discussing the current situation in Afghanistan, its future. So there is some kind of exacerbation probably in terms of what's going on in Afghanistan. But nevertheless, there are a host of problems to be done quickly and to be done at the side of our government itself. But the question of recognition of a modern Afghan government, I think it's highly likely that the world would come to recognition, because you cannot continue to try to get along with non-recognized government. This is also, it's a very favorable justification for Afghan government not to do some kind of things which has to be done. So briefly, that's all I wanted to share with you. If you have questions, please, I'll be ready. Thank you very much.
May I now request Mr. Ahmed Rashid, for he's a renowned scholar of Pakistan and his fame is not restricted to Pakistan. He is known all over the world. So I would now like to request you, sir, to give your comments and your
Hello. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you. And I've made my main presentation yesterday. I'm just going to give you 5 minutes of comments on what we've heard so far, and then I have a plane to catch. But essentially, I think my first comment is that I find it strange that neither of the speakers mentioned the factor of Islamic ideology and the ideology of the Taliban. That is incredibly important. To understand the Taliban, we have to understand that their ideology is completely at odds with Islam in general. It's completely at odds with the Islamic traditions that have developed in South Asia, in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not an autocratic Islamic system. Traditionally, it has always promoted Sufism and various kinds of spiritual Islam, and it is normally considered to be a standard Sunni Islamic state. The Taliban have turned all that around and have now basically installed their own interpretation of extreme Deobandi Islam, which goes at odds with a lot of normal Afghans, how they consider Islam and how they use it. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that this ideology has sustained them all this time. It has created a kind of unity amongst the believers of the Taliban. And that's become increasingly important because Pakistan has not been able to promote a counter-ideology. An ideology, I mean, whether it's economic or development or done any major favor to Pakistan. So The third factor is economic. The Taliban have been able to sustain an economic model for themselves that has generated sufficient income for them to develop and use their military. So in other words, they are funding their military. They are not funding the people. They don't have a social action program. They don't really care much about what the people are suffering in terms of their health and education. What they believe in is that the income they receive goes straight into the Taliban military. And that's another innovative new model which the world finds very difficult to combat. The other thing is that and then of course they've been helped a lot by the capture of arms. We've known after the withdrawal of the Americans there was a huge influx of arms that the Taliban captured from the Americans, and those arms are now spread amongst the various international terrorist groups who the Taliban support. The economy has depended essentially on the exploitation of minerals, marble minerals, and of course drugs. And there's very little that the outside community has been able to do to reach out to the Taliban. One, because of the embargo and the restrictions on the Taliban. You can't help the Taliban even if you wanted to. And so their dependence on these illegal, the mineral business is also basically an illegal. They don't pay tax to anyone. And of course drugs, as we know, has developed enormously, not just, no longer just heroin, but amphetamine and all the other modern drugs that have emerged. So the other thing I think that is very important is that as long as the international community refuses to recognize the Taliban as a government and makes them part of the international system, the Taliban are going to depend more and more upon illegal means to continue themselves in power. And also they're going to depend on extremist and terrorist groups in the region, Central Asia, whether it's Central Asian groups or Chinese groups, Pakistani groups. They're going to depend on these groups to sustain themselves in power. The West is in the middle of this conundrum. Should they recognize the Taliban? Well, many people would say no, because they haven't complied with the international system. They don't believe in regulations and the United Nations and etc. And others would say, well, the only way to mellow them down and to get them to agree to international standards is to recognize them. And this is a debate that has been going on, ever since Kabul fell 2 years ago. It's been going on since then, and it hasn't really resolved itself. So on every count, I would say, there is a division. And of course, other factors, such as the failure to address women's issues, particularly female education. I would say even male education is in a pitiful state, because it's not really an education. It's the recitation of prayers and the Holy Book in madrasas and mosques. It has nothing to do with educating a new Afghan generation and bringing them up on par with the educational systems around the world. So, this ideology, I go back to this issue of ideology because it's the most important factor, I think. It's not going anywhere. They believe so sincerely in the ideology, and that is also partly because they believe that their unity in the face of the enemy, be it neighboring states or the anti-Taliban movement in northern Afghanistan or anywhere else, they believe that this is what sustains them. This is what unites them. This is what strengthens them. And so they're not about to give up this ideology for the sake of some recognition by the UN, which they don't really, apart from the money, they don't have any consideration for. So I think, we are faced with a real dilemma. I think Pakistan's big mistake right from the beginning was its support for the Taliban at a time when the Taliban were very weak, and I'm talking about the period before 9/11, when the Taliban were very weak and were not self-sustainable, and Pakistan could have played a much more effective role, perhaps, in trying to persuade them to moderate their position. So we have a situation, a no-win situation on all counts. People are, Afghans are obviously extremely worried. The international community is worried because of the number of terrorist groups that are now operating out of Afghanistan. And we are not seeing any progress or development. Nobody is prepared to militarily take on the Taliban again. Nobody wants another war in Afghanistan. Nobody will sustain another war in Afghanistan. So the Taliban seem to be sitting pretty at the moment, with very little obstruction to their plan and what they want to do. There is, of course, the hope that somehow, as long as the Taliban do well, they will somehow moderate their position. What I maintain is that you will not moderate your position as long as you have this ideological background, and as long as you believe in this whole Deobandi interpretation of Islam and how important that is to them. You're not really going to get progress. So, and it's unfortunate because the situation, we know the humanitarian situation is chronic. The school, the education system, the health system has collapsed basically. There's not sufficient food and water for ordinary people. I'll end there, and I want to thank everyone that this has been a very educative seminar for me also. You had excellent speakers, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed Rashid. You enlighten us with your views. We now have a scholar from Afghanistan who will be joining us online. Are we ready for that? Is there? Now we'll be listening to Dr. Salman bin Shah. He's from Afghanistan and he'll be talking to us from Afghanistan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. Good morning. Salam alaikum from Kabul. It's a pleasure to be part of this event, and the dilemma after listening to such wise speakers is always there. So it's challenging to speak after hearing so many valuable thoughts. But I'll try to be very concise and brief today, and I'll try to give you some picture of what is happening right now, what has been done in our recent political history. I'll also try to give you a brief outlook of how doing business looks like in Afghanistan after 2 years of the takeover, and of course some barriers that we are still facing when it comes to doing business in the country, but also doing business with the region. I'll start with this quote, and it says, "If goods don't move, boots will." It has stayed with me for the last many years. And I think even in 2023, if we talk about any region in the world, this quote somehow remains very realistic. And it seems that the political frameworks and security lenses always dominate the economic side, also I would say, the efforts on peace and prosperity. Just to give you a very brief timeline of Afghanistan's recent political history, starting from Anglo-Afghan wars in 1839 until 2021, it's been a roller coaster journey for Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan. We witnessed a Soviet invasion in 1979. Then we witnessed a civil war in 1992. And then, of course, after 6 years of Taliban's first tenure, in 2001, we saw an international American-led military campaign launched after 9/11 attacks on Afghanistan. And as Dr. Ellinor mentioned, 46 countries with military power, and then, of course, a huge number of other countries just coming to Afghanistan and staying in Afghanistan for 2 decades, had a tremendous impact on everything in Afghanistan. And in 2021, we all saw that the Taliban 2.0 started, the Taliban re-emerged, they took over Afghanistan, and it's a new reality now for Afghanistan and for the world. I am sure this picture was seen everywhere on August 15, 2021, when Kabul fell. In fact, I was at the presidential palace on that day. And in the coming few months, we saw that the Taliban, once after the takeover, they formed a government, and it is called now the Interim Taliban Administration, which is a reality on the ground. So going with this context, I would also like to mention how the Taliban came into power for the second time. And it was the peace process. This was going on for almost 15 years. The Taliban were excluded in Bonn Conference in Afghanistan in 2001, which was a mistake by the international community. But at the same time, after 2004, there were multiple high peace councils formed to negotiate with the Taliban. Pakistan, importantly, but other neighboring countries also played a very pivotal role, including China and Central Asian states, to make sure that the Doha Peace Agreement is signed in 2019. And so let's not forget this entire context and process of power sharing agreed with the Taliban by the US and witnessed by the international community and by the region. And I think this is the basis of why Taliban on August 15, 2021 were able to retake Afghanistan and retake Kabul. But in the last 2 decades, I would also like to highlight that despite the war and despite the suffering and everything that we saw in Afghanistan, almost 400 people dying a day, at the same time, the country was rebuilt. The reconstruction efforts were there. And Afghanistan from 2001 to 2002 witnessed a surreal growth in its economy, in its private sector outlook, and basically anything that is related to doing business, economic development, and also regional cooperation. I think the last 20 years were super packed, highly energetic, and highly important in our recent history. So we begin with, simple commerce, to agriculture, to basic manufacturing, work also on the mining sector, education, ICT, and huge growth was witnessed in Afghanistan. So if we look at the private sector investments in the country, close to $10 billion, and I think that's a significant number beyond the number that we saw during the war economy, and the money spent in terms of the military campaign that was happening in Afghanistan for almost 20 years. During this process, the private sector also created a number of jobs, employment opportunities, our people got educated. We had tremendous amount of opportunities in terms of employment. And basically, the private sector grew, became bigger and bigger. and the private sector established its operations all over Afghanistan. It also established business membership organizations. So what I'm trying to prove or say here is in the last 2 decades, we witnessed bad things, but we also really saw some great things happening in Afghanistan. My next point is that the war was also good for regional business. If you look at the import bill of Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021, you can see that we have imported huge values, dollar values, of course, of products from the region and also internationally from anywhere else in the world. And this was good for regional transport. It was also good for regional economy in terms of employment opportunities and investment opportunities that it provided. At the same time, Afghans were also spending huge amounts of money for medical purposes, that is in the health sector, education and transport throughout the region, both in South Asia, particularly Pakistan, India, but also in Central Asia, including Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and other places. So if we look at the 2001 and 2021 period, we can say that over 17,000 kilometers of roads were built in Afghanistan, so huge infrastructure works were carried out. Our education levels increased, access to both men and women in Afghanistan also increased in the last 20 years. In fact, 1 million girls were enrolled in schools, which we never really witnessed ever before. And our GDP from mere 2 billion in 2001, grew to $20 billion. And I think it had a very significant impact, both vertically and horizontally, on our economic growth and also the ecosystem that we built in the last 20 years. Now, what is this vision of regional connectivity for Afghanistan? I'm coming now straight to today's topic and would like to share my 2 cents on how we see from Kabul the vision of regional connectivity, where we are, what are our challenges. I'm sure you know that Afghanistan is always termed as Heart of Asia, and Allama Iqbal of Lahore also has mentioned Afghanistan in his poetry. He says that if there is peace in Afghanistan, there will be peace in entire Asia, and vice versa. If there is no peace in Afghanistan, there is instability in Afghanistan, the entire Asia will be disturbed. And since this is an Asian continental economy now beginning, with what we have seen in the region and what we have seen internationally, the shifts, particularly last year with what China did in terms of the treaty between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and everything that we have witnessed in the 20 years, I think the Afghanistan of 2023 offers a highly unique chance and opportunity to its neighborhood. I know there are a lot of grievances. I know there are a lot of issues highlighted by speakers, earlier, but I still want to be optimistic, and I feel this is a great opportunity for the region to engage Afghanistan and to redefine its approach and relationship with Afghanistan. And the same goes for Afghanistan, to work harder and harder to make sure that it is a very valuable part of the region, not seen just only by the lens of security, but with the potential it can offer to the region. So as you all know, we have a lot of natural wealth and resources. It's all documented, given online. I'm not going to go into the details. But I would like to mention that in the last 20 years, we have made incredible expansion in the sector of education, arts, and media. Yes, brain drain right now is a very big challenge for us. A lot of capable people are leaving the country or have left the country. But there's a huge number of Afghan young people who are still in the country and who have made the choice of staying in the country. And I think we cannot overlook that. We cannot ignore that reality. The power of internet is across the country. More than 70% of our population in one way or other has access to the digital world. And if it comes to industry and commerce, I'm very happy to report that, despite the challenges, we are self-sufficient in basic sectors, some almost 60 sectors. We have been able to export $2 billion worth of goods this last year, which is a big number in the last 20 years. And within our export basket, I would like to say that it's the best of Afghanistan that we export to the region and to other countries, whether they are our farm produce or fruits and nuts and many other minerals and resources that we send, or any other product that you may pick from the export basket. Is simply the best of Afghanistan. We do not have any ammunition factory in the country. We do not develop or produce small arms or big arms. Yes, the issue of the Taliban and the Taliban movement is, of course, very important for everybody. But then again, we have to look at the history, at the context, and why the Taliban, which are now labeled, is more influenced by Devbandi philosophy. Where did they come from, and how did the Charlie Wilson's war start, and where we are exactly, post Charlie Wilson's war. We also should look at the transit trade in the last 2 years. If you see, Pakistan has been able to export significantly to Uzbekistan through Afghanistan in the last 2 years, and the trade flow, fortunately, is there. The vision of Afghanistan being a potential, actor in regional connectivity is obviously, very much explained and documented and talked about. But the three key aspects, of course, are the key energy projects. My colleague from Kazakhstan mentioned a couple of things in that regard. Then, of course, there are infrastructure and connectivity issues like railways and highways. Very thankful to Uzbekistan for investing in the north and helping us build those railways. Of course, Turkmenistan for the Chapi project. And I'm very happy to hear that it is almost completed now from our colleague, which again also was an initiative by Taliban in 1990s. When they were in power. That's when TAPI was initiated in the very beginning. And of course, the South and Central Asia trade potential. Central Asia is a $300 billion big GDP market. Its potential for South Asia is huge. I think everybody understands that. But Afghanistan, being the missing link, also carries a significant importance, and why it's very important for all regional countries to help Afghanistan become that roundabout that we are dreaming of. I would also like to mention that in 2020, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce of Afghanistan proposed a plan to all our 6 neighboring countries. It used to be called the Trade for Peace Program. We requested all 6 neighboring countries to redefine our approach and redefine our principles of engagement, because it is, 21st century, and COVID-19, the global pandemic, shook the entire world. It was also a big concern for us here in Kabul. And so the proposal was made to 6 neighboring countries. Unfortunately, there was not a lot of progress made because of the 2021 takeover. So the program continued for just 6 months. And still we had significant progress with Pakistan and Uzbekistan, where we were able to discuss the Afghanistan-Pakistan transit trade agreement, but unsuccessfully in a way that we were not really able to move to the next stage. We also believed back then that the better use of international platforms such as WTO and ITC are very important. For example, China and Turkey have taken significant advantage of those platforms, and we should rather rationalize our trade prospects. A very realistic plan should be made how to make sure the regional connectivity, because it would require a number of strategic partnership agreements, legal frameworks, so many preparatory works are needed to make sure that we have a regional cooperation, and also cooperation to the levels enough that we ensure regional connectivity. So our proposal was true cooperation and healthy competition, which turns into co-opetition. And this was a proposal made back then. And I think this proposal is still very valid for all countries. Even now, we need to build ecosystems across our neighborhood, across Central Asia and South Asia, while thinking globally but acting locally, because we are different settings, we're very unique countries, and we have to consider going forward if we talk about regional connectivity. But I think the biggest challenge also, and this is the last point, is to combat malpractices and corruption. I've spent 10 years of my life at the Ministry of Industry and Commerce in Afghanistan, and I think my biggest learning is that we need to kill corruption. We need to fight corruption. I guess corruption has also played a significant role of why regional connectivity is still a dream. And not a lot of times this is talked about, and there is very less focus on this issue. Politics is one side, but I think technically and legally speaking, on the ground, corruption is also hampering our efforts. So in the post-August 2021 arena, if you see, there is ease of mobility, there is increased security sense if you move or travel across Afghanistan. The commodity or market prices are stable, the currency rates are also. I don't want to go into the details of it, but yes, there is some sort of stability in the market. I can tell you for a fact that there are no extortion, no ransom money now across Afghanistan because of this sense of security. And the services are still active. The government or the administration is still serving the business or private sector. And the quality of these services may be different at times, but at least the units are functional and they are serving clients. Now, the banking constraints, which is the biggest challenge right now, is still there. I think colleagues earlier talked extensively about why, because of the recognition and because of the political impasse that Afghanistan has right now with the world. But at the same time, there is also no true regional support. In the last 20 years as well, the word occupation was never used in the last 20 years by any of our neighbors. It is now that we hear the word occupation, thankfully. But at the same time, capacity issues are also a big challenge, not only in Afghanistan, but in the region as well. South Asia or Central Asia is a huge deficit of capacity that we need to build and need to have in order to ensure regional connectivity. And this primarily is related to the economic diplomacy effort. If we look at Afghanistan or Pakistan or any other country in Central Asia and see how much are we investing in our capabilities to do better economic diplomacy, I think you will find a great deal of answers in why we are so slow in making this dream a reality. But at the same time, our bilateral relationship with Pakistan has degraded, I think, in the last 2 years. The relationship with Central Asian countries is still very friendly. There are concerns, of course, but I'm particularly concerned about our relationship with Pakistan and Islamabad, which is the key for Afghanistan's role in regional connectivity, but also in a broader picture. So I think that's a point of concern. At the same time, the role of China, I think with the regional connectivity of Central and South Asia, we need to understand more what role China can play and how can we define that role realistically, and what is it that China can offer both to Central and South Asia when it comes to the issue of Afghanistan. So I think a huge debate needs to be done on this. I wish any of the organizers today, or maybe someone else, would take this initiative to sort of understand, the future role of China in South and Central Asian connectivity, in particular to CPEC or any other initiative. There are also barriers to doing business, of course. The confidence of the private sector was low at the very first. Now that confidence is coming back. The confidence in the banking sector is also coming back. We are seeing some level of deposits now happening despite the fact that transfers cannot happen. But I would say we still have some regulatory and legal challenges. There are, of course, taxation issues. Corruption levels have reduced, red tape has reduced, but it doesn't mean that it's a perfect ecosystem now. It's not. There are other challenges. We still have operational challenges. Access to markets for our private sector is a big issue. Visa is still a big issue. I mean, I was not really able to get visa to come to Karachi in person, so I'm joining online. But visa is still an issue. And of course, there are sector-specific challenges as well that I think are serious barriers to doing business in the country. There is a will, there is a political will to remove these barriers, but again, the issue of capacity and the issue of expertise, professional expertise required within the administration, and the lack of a grand vision is still there, which I think is not allowing some real and fast progress. This is going to be my last slide. The economic diplomacy in the last 2 years, we are enjoying, I think, friendly trade relations with Central Asian countries as well as China and Iran, but a very dynamic relationship with Pakistan. Initially, a lot of exports going up to Pakistan because of the less geographic barriers and better security on the roads. But with the recent issue of forced returnees, I think the relationship has gone to an all-time low. But at the same time, two aspects that I would like to mention here is the work of the Economic Commission of the interim Taliban administration, as well as the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, two units of the administration who are still trying to work within the country and also with the regional partners, particularly with Pakistan and Central Asia, to ensure that they are able to address some of the challenges, at least bilaterally, if not the issues that are there in the bigger picture. So that gives a little bit of hope, but yes, there are still a few concerns that I think is hampering the economic diplomacy efforts on the side of the ITA. From my end, I think the suggestion to everybody, including Afghanistan and other countries, would be to continue the track of engagement, dialogue, and advocacy. We need to engage, we need to have an exchange of views and dialogues, and at the same time, we have to do advocacy. If there are things and there are issues that we don't like to see in Afghanistan or in the region, I think we need to speak up, and we have to use all pressure tools, whatever pressure tools are at our disposal, to make sure that we see those changes or reforms in Afghanistan and in the region. I think all countries also have to seriously think how to segregate petty politics in trade, because sometimes small issues are also affecting the larger trade relations or bilateral relations. And despite political connotations, I think capacity building is the key. This is also a topic which never gets a lot of attention, but I think all regional countries, including Afghanistan, they have should work within the administrations of the countries to ensure that some realistic goals are achieved. We also have to support our reformers. If we don't support our reformers, I think that would be a loss for all of us. The third thing I would really like to highlight is to kill corruption. If we don't address the issue of corruption, even though we will have a favorable political environment, we would still not achieve our objectives. So I think corruption, killing corruption and combating corruption should be a key agenda moving forward. And lastly, but not the least, we have to empower the doers. There's so many people in Afghanistan, in the region, who talk big, so big ideas are great, but I think our actions would speak louder than our words, and we have to support and empower the doers who would actually do lots of these projects and lots of these activities which would complement regional connectivity. I'll pause here, I'll stop here. I would be happy to take any questions, Chair, and I'm here to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I learned a lot of things. I had no idea that getting a visa for a scholar even is such a difficult thing between Pakistan and Afghanistan. I was under the illusion that people can travel freely. This is the purpose of these seminars. You get to know what is happening around you. I won't stand between you. Now we'll open the floor for questions. Oh, okay. It's not written here. Okay. This is Munasema session 1, 2, 3. I would request Dr. Shah to be online because questions will be coming very soon. Now we have another very interesting presentation, and this will also be made online. And the scholar will discuss the prospects of extending CPEC to Afghanistan, a study based on field work. And Dr. Dranbong Wang will present his ideas.
Okay, thank you, lady. Thank you, madam. Now I share my presentation. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Thank you for our colleagues from University of Karachi. I have to say it's a very big pity because I was staying in Karachi for over 2 years. But I also have many good friends from University of Karachi, especially Dr. Naim and the other professors. So now I'm very glad to share my research on the CPEC on Pakistan and on Afghanistan. But it was based on my field work in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. So my name is Alexander Wang, but from Shanghai International Study University. But actually, in the past 3 years, I always stayed at South Asia and the Central Asia to provide humanitarian aid and to conducted some the field work. So okay. So now you can see my presentation, right? Are you sure? You got it? Hello? Oh, yeah. I trust that you can see my presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. So actually, as you know, the BRI initiative was released about 10 years ago. Actually, Afghanistan, we can say was one of the earliest countries to respond to the BRI. Actually, we know 9 years ago, the former Afghanistan President Ghani said to President Xi that they are very interested in the BRI. And in the 2016, the former government of Afghanistan signed BRI MOU with the Chinese government. And at that time, China-Afghanistan freight train operated. And in the first three countries meeting of Minister of Foreign Affairs, China, Afghanistan, Pakistan, to discuss the extension of CPEC to Afghanistan. So actually, we can say Afghanistan involved the CPEC and the BRI very earlier. And even before the Taliban returned to Kabul, I remember the fifth three FMA meeting to mention that they will improve the connectivity among three nations. Last year, the first the Prime Minister Baladar of Afghanistan to say they wish Afghanistan could be accepted by BRI. Just in last month, Afghanistan government attended the third BRI summit at Beijing. We know the so-called BRI. They have the five-pronged approach. We can have this word cloud. Actually, the most important always is we can say on BRI always trade and infrastructure and connectivity. So just now, Mr. Ben Shah mentioned the very good topic. Land bridge. Land bridge is a very important concept. So, but now I will introduce my research based on my fieldwork in Afghanistan. Actually, from 2 years ago, I always at this country, I stayed about close to 9 months and to around about the 21 province of Afghanistan to drive about driving on land over 10,000 kilometers. And apart from my fieldwork, my partner and I even registered an NGO in Kabul to provide humanitarian aid to the local people. So now we can my presentation will discuss this 4 topics. The first one about the Afghan economic situation. Second, we will discuss Afghan foreign economic relations. Third, we will discuss the key challenges for the Afghanistan collaboration with other countries, especially with China and Pakistan. Finally, we can discuss the CPEC. So the first one, the Afghan, the features of economic structure. All of the picture were taken by myself in Afghanistan. This picture is a Ministry of Economy. Actually, in the past 2 decades, as mentioned by Mr. Ben Shah, actually the economic situation of the Afghanistan was not so bad, we can say. we can notice that actually in the past the 2 decades, especially in the past 10 years, the GDP growth rate of Afghanistan is not so low, and we can say the growth rate is keep stable, always keep stable. But the real point problem is economic of the structure of Afghanistan is not so modern. We can notice, especially for the manufacturing. This line. Actually, until now, I cannot understand why in the past 2 decades the share of manufacturing in GDP has been decreasing so dramatically. For example, in 2 years ago, before Taliban took office in Kabul, the manufacturing share in GDP only 6%. Is so low. But there is a very very positive side of Afghanistan in the past 2 years. Please notice that exchange rate always keep very stable. So actually, from my first visiting to Afghanistan, the exchange rate about 96, and when I leave from Afghanistan, is about 84. Now, we notice actually is less than 70. So it means Afghanistan is even for the Taliban government always keep the economic stable. Although this economic situation is not so good, although we can say the growth rate is not so high, but it's stable. And even we can notice that in the past 20 years, inflation rates, and maybe in the first 10 years, the inflation rate is so high, but in the past 10 years, inflation rate is not so high. It's we can say it's also stable. Even in the past 2 years, we can say inflation rate is not so terrible. And anyway, we can discuss the industry sector of Afghanistan. We can say now currently the industry sector of Afghanistan is so not so modern. We can say the industry sector is very weak. Just now I mentioned, the manufacturing also occupied only 6%, but we always find some the modern factory. But actually, I find that it's a steel mill that invested by Chinese in Kabul. This steel mill, it can produce steel about 80,000 tons per year. Maybe compared to the Pakistan, it's so low. But in Afghanistan, it's okay. It's so we can say. The point is that the Afghanistan now is a very shortage of power. According to this research, but even by the current situation, the gap, the gap between the demand and the supply is about 50%. But it means currently the Afghanistan can only provide the electricity to the whole country on less than 50%. So Afghanistan always need to import electricity from neighbor countries, and now this country also need to construct the new power plants. And another problem is we know the transportation infrastructure is so bad. Actually, it's a Hindu Kush mountain, but the road is very, very bad. But when I drive in this road, the speed also less than 15 kilometers per hour. Actually, but I noticed that Actually, although we can say Afghanistan now cannot provide the enough food by itself. Actually, but we know even for food, Afghanistan always has two important, at least 50% for his people. But actually, I think Afghanistan has a very good agriculture conditions. Just in the past 5 years, the drought in Afghanistan is so terrible. But we can notice that actually even in the very far and villages in Afghanistan, we can always notice this agriculture infrastructure. It's not so bad. And for this. And this, we always notice the channel drainage and the enough water in mountain and in village. Even in the Badakhshan, we notice the Kucha River until now is have a very large, we can say the enough water capacity. So just for if by the basic economic rule, we can say for the current Afghanistan, if for the post-war infrastructure, we know always many people always say that Afghanistan is very rich in natural resources, especially from mining. But in my opinion, although we can say mining has a very good prospect, but currently it's not so suitable for the current situation. But I guess first one, agriculture and the infrastructure, and the second one, Afghanistan now need investment, especially need the cash inflows. But the third one, we have to know Afghanistan now is still in the crisis of humanitarian, so it also needs the living material. So, but just for currently, but Afghanistan, just as I mentioned, needs agriculture, infrastructure, and foreign investment. We can notice we can mention the Afghan economic relations with foreign countries. We have to notice that in the past 2 decades, Afghanistan has been the biggest nation of accepting foreign aid. In summit, net ODA received per capita close to $200 is very high. For his net ODA received by central government expense even over 200% and 50% is not so right. We always can notice in the international aid everywhere in Afghanistan, but without Afghanistan always customers to the foreign aid. Now the foreign aid is very little in Afghanistan. So this is why the current Afghanistan always in the we can say the very difficult conditions currently, but it's not so good, so right. And we can notice Afghan international trade. Actually, this means import. This means export. So we can say in the past 20 years, 25 years, Afghanistan always the country with a very high deficit. It means Afghanistan always have a very big capacity to export. They always need imports. We can notice the structure of imports and export. Even we can see this in the recent the updated data. For export, Afghanistan always export dry fruit, fresh fruit, medical herb, and vegetable. It's always a primary industry, primary sector. And import what goods? Petroleum, wheat, it means food, and vegetable oil, and machinery. So it means Afghanistan cannot produce anything, always need anything. So for Afghanistan major trade partner, in the past 20 years, export, the biggest partner, India and Pakistan. For import, the biggest partner, China, Iran, and Pakistan. For the data for this year, we can notice that it's Afghanistan, the trade partner, China, Iran, Pakistan. So it means this neighbor country is very important to Afghanistan. So we can say this data actually is the same meaning. And so just for the current Afghanistan, if for the current government of the now will release some of the preferential policy for to attract the FDI. First one, the policy is land range. The second one, the electricity supply, and the third one, the duty and customer procedure. It means the Taliban government promised to provide preferential policy in these three sides to any FDI. So we can discuss the economic relations between China and Afghanistan. So we can notice actually in the past 20 years, the trade between China and Afghanistan always keep very high growth rates. But please notice that maybe we can say in trade, in trade side, China is very important to Afghanistan, but Afghanistan is not so important to China. And this in the past 2 years, we can notice that especially in the recent, in the last 1 year, the trade between China and Afghanistan always keep very high growth rates. So it means that although now we can say the trade value between China and Afghanistan is not so high, especially to China, but the growth rate is very, very high. So it's very important to Afghanistan. So now, maybe it will provide the new opportunity to Afghanistan. So because now here comes CPEC stage 2. We know the stage 2 is quite different with the stage 1. We know the master plan of CPEC. The whole plan about the whole plan is about the 62 billion US dollar. Until now, complete about 16 billion US but the stage 2 will focus manufacturing is quite different because in stage 1 always focus on the infrastructure. Now the stage 2 is quite different. Manufacturing, social security, and border port, and poverty alleviation, and trade, agriculture. So it's very important to the collaboration between China and Pakistan, especially Pakistan, but it will be also provide the new opportunity to Afghanistan. Just now we mentioned the Afghanistan economic features, but I guess it will match. So we know CPEC now saluting its speed, but we can because now the two countries, China and Pakistan, always face some specialty and some special difficulty. But I trust we will try to solve this problem. So just for the CPEC stage 2, the priority sector is changing and international environment is changing. But the CPEC, although CPEC also already mentioned, the CPEC is a framework regional connectivity. It means the CPEC is not only for China and Pakistan. CPEC will become the big framework for the whole region, especially for the West Asia, the South Asia and the Central Asia. So CPEC will open to the neighbor countries. So we will interesting. Will Afghanistan will be a new red one? So I'm not sure, but we can try to discuss. Please notice that this trade trade between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Actually, the trade with Afghanistan is very, very important to Pakistan because Pakistan can get supplies from the trade with Afghanistan. So important. I guess maybe in the next stage, if we can extend the CPEC to Afghanistan, so I guess the priority will be agriculture, infrastructure, electricity, and transportation. But they are still some key challenge for Afghanistan. The first one is, just I mentioned, the humanitarian crisis. Even this year, only WFP will reach about the 23 million people Afghanistan, but now out of money. Until now, the gap is about 600 million US dollars. It means the international communities has no enough willing to provide the humanitarian aid to the Afghan people. So I guess maybe the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan will still there. But also for us, we always conduct some aid to local people. Also, our aid is very, very little. So I guess this slum, when I first visiting to Afghanistan, I went to this slum in Kabul, and we always notice the very weak persons in Afghanistan, especially these very young girls, always in danger. Very weak. And even we can notice, we took this highlight, but this forward is for drug. The boy's mother is addict, so they have no home, they have no bed, they just live in the street, so very weak. And even we noticed, we visited the Child Institute of Kabul, but we can notice a very serious, terrible situation, children's health, we can notice. So this is why we provide aid to local people. Even we register this NGO in Kabul, we always, because we have a very little funding, we always, provide humanitarian by our own money. So we always focus, because I'm a professor in the university, so I will say our NGO always focus on education, health, children and teenagers, and especially for the gender equality. So we always ask to provide the material to the women, girls. Until now, even though I'm not in Afghanistan now, but we have some colleagues in Kabul who still work there. Until now, we visit we provide aid to over 32 provinces and land over the 10,000 kilometers. Until now, we have at least 20 events of humanitarian aid. So that is our events picture. So I have to say, even about the earthquake last year, in the very close to Pakistan, northern Pakistan here. Actually, it's Afghan Dubai village, and it's me because last year I took these flowers to the earthquake to the refugee. But I have to say, although we always try to private aid to local people, but we always met some trouble. For example, bureaucracy and transportation, and even we always met security situation and hostility. But I feel especially some of the local Taliban officers is not so friendly to us. So we always get the Taliban security check. And even when I provided aid to the local teachers, local schools, this Taliban soldier, the local soldier always try to go to the field to try to arrest us. So it's very terrible. The second key challenge is the security terrorism. I guess maybe you know, last year, the very terrible terrorist attack in the Kabul Long-Gun Hotel. Actually, unfortunately, at that time, I was there. This hotel, before attack, I lived there the six months. But when this is my room, when terrorist attack, I lived there 6 months, but the first grenade bombed in the 7th month. Even I saw the first terrorist that took a pistol to aim at me. So I have to say, actually, the security protection in local hotel is very good. And the Taliban government provided, I guess, enough the security protection to this hotel, although the terrorist attack happened. So you can imagine the situation was so terribly. Actually, this after attack about this. So I have to say, although I trust that we will have we can try to the collaboration between China, Pakistan, and Afghanistan to extend CPEC, but they will still some problem. So it's my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and my request to scholars who made their presentation online to remain online, because there are going to be some questions. Before the question answer session, I promise you I won't stand between you and your hot cup of tea, but there are very brief comments. I'll take 5 minutes. I hope I don't go beyond that, but before 2013, I hardly ever heard about connectivity and, trade routes and all those things. My interest in trade routes is a very old one. In my book launch, I narrated the story, how I got interested in trade routes. But, in 2013, we heard about this big scheme, Belt and Road Initiative. It put new life into everyone, especially in developing countries who could now, they were desperate to end poverty, to alleviate poverty, and so it put new life into them. And when this BRI has 6 tracks, one of them is CPEC. We know more about it because it concerns our country. And CPEC is called the flagship project, or rather it was called flagship project when there was rapid progress in this area. But a lot of people I interviewed for my book gave me very mixed kind of reactions. Some said it's still going in full swing. Others said that it's slowing down because of some factors beyond the control of perhaps, Pakistan and China. Since then, there is a profusion of ideas about, connectivity, linking the world. And before that, there was nothing but wars. US launched 2 wars against Iraq, and they launched a war against Afghanistan, and they were all wars. But when China came up with this idea, it created interest and connectivity, and even US came up with some connectivity projects. You must have heard about US-India project, which is going to connect Middle East with India. And if you follow this on the map, you will find that sometimes they are going to carry goods on land, then they'll be using sea route, then again land route, then again sea route to reach India. My assessment so far, I've not done an in-depth study of this, but my assessment so far is that this is not a new idea. Trade is still going on between Saudi Arabia and India, UAE and Saudi Arabia, and UAE and India. But what they are trying to do is that they are trying to connect, the US is trying to connect all these separate trade routes and to make them one project and to put a flag on it. This is considered to be a US-India project. And Gaza, with this Israeli aggression in Gaza, which is still going on, there are two dimensions that have come up. We all know about the oil and gas in Gaza, which can make the lives of people of Gaza better. Gaza has a very high percentage of highly educated people. Literacy rate is very high, but there is still poverty because of Israel's sanctions, and they've cut Gaza off from the world. And this did not start on October 7th. It's a very old thing that is going on. The other dimension is, it's a rather old idea, but it's being revived now, that a canal should be, dug out, and this should connect West Mediterranean with Indian Ocean, bypassing the Suez Canal. Egypt is a friend of Israel, but see, they are trying to cut off Suez Canal and make it redundant, and this new canal, so Israel can get a lot of money when people use this canal, when it's used for trade, and also grab the oil and gas. So this idea is being refloated. It's an old idea, but they are trying to revive it. And along with this, there is this idea of CPEC plus. I think it's a great idea. If this works out, then China and Pakistan are already there, but Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia. The name will be changed, of course, I think, but look at the prospects for Pakistan. We'll get connected with Central Asia. This is our very old dream, to get connected with Central Asia, to flourish our economy, this trade activity, go all the way, include Afghanistan, Iran, Central Asia, Pakistan. It's going to be a very big, workable kind of an idea. But there is another parallel idea. China has already built, perhaps work has started on this, a road connecting Wakhan Valley. Look at Wakhan Valley in the map. Wakhan Valley is a short, narrow strip separating Pakistan from, this is Afghan territory. So China is now building a road there. It will go all the way to Iran. So if there are problems in Pakistan, connectivity problems, then they have another option. The first option, the preferable option, is China, Pakistan, going all the way to Gwadar and getting connected to Middle East. But if for some reason there are problems, complications, China is building another parallel system, Wakhan Road connecting China and Afghanistan and then going all the way to Iran. And Iran has kicked India out of this Chabahar. India built it, but now, they were given the contract to build the roads connecting Chabahar with the northern areas of Iran. That project has been taken away from India because there was no progress. Probably under US dictation, India was not completing that project. So now Iran has taken control back into its hands. So there are many, many projects. I think Pakistan must adopt a proactive approach, and we should be able to see where our interests lie. One problem is that, some countries, we all know their names, who look upon China as their adversary, are trying to create problems between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. There was a very disturbing news that there are plans to start some kind of conflict engulfing this entire region. This would put an end to CPEC. Even other BRI tracks would be adversely affected if this happens. It's in our interest to see that there is peace in the region. For the first time in our existence, we've got a real possibility of bearing poverty, of alleviating poverty, and of doing something good for our people. Our people should be our first concern. So with these words, I would like you people to ask questions. Yes?
Thank you, madam.
Please introduce yourself and then ask the question.
Yes, madam. Thank you for this opportunity. And my name is Haris, and I'm the teaching assistant at the Department of International Relations. My question is for Dr. Mohit. Sir, in the post-Soviet era, Central Asian experienced a pronounced upsurge in the geopolitical tensions, significantly shifting the focus towards the pressing matters of water conflict between the Uzbekistan and Afghanistan. And this, at the crux of this contentious issue lies Amu Darya River, a pivotal water resource shared by Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. Do you think that this issue has the potential to escalate or serve as a catalyst for regional cooperation and unity? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You mean, is this problem may result in something more than contradiction or what? I'm sorry. The last part of your question. Can you repeat, please?
Yes, sir. Do you think that this issue has the potential to escalate or serve as a catalyst for regional cooperations and unity?
Okay, thank you. I think this is not actually a big problem or reason to escalate. The fact is that nobody knows for certain what portion of water is formed in the territory of Afghanistan from Amu Darya. They are claiming 15%, but it's not exact information. And this channel, the construction of this channel started during the Soviet period. It has a long history, more than 40 years or something like that. This is very interesting fact that someone outside Afghanistan helping to construct this dam, because some Central Asian expert told me it might be Americans even or someone else who are engaged in the construction. So here is, I mentioned that not all the Central Asian countries are trying to keep a hardline position in regard to this question. The most possible affected countries of after the completion of this channel, you mean Kushtepa, right? Yeah. Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. But these two countries actually have been affected by climate change, by the water scarcity, long before the Amudarya, from one hand. From the second hand, Afghanistan surely has its right for some part of the river, because it is also a transboundary country. It also has its share rights over some part of this river. But the problem is that since this government is not recognized, they are just ignoring the different conventions which was mentioned before. They are depicting their intention to decide this probably silently. And Uzbekistan pursuing a policy of, which reminds me the policy of, how to say, to make, it's like before the start of the war, when countries trying to ease or to meet expectation of the others. Say. So this is not a crucial situation, but in fact it may lead to complications in future, because Central Asians, say Turkmenistan for example, or Uzbekistan, that for Afghanistan, Koshterpa channel is a kind of a branding. This is an imageal project which also will change the demographics of the northern Afghanistan, because the construction of there are some estimates to place to the northern part of Afghanistan some 500,000 population from the south of Afghanistan. So this is actually the change of ethnic map of the northern Afghanistan. So this is one of the obstacles for example, Tajikistan, who is on the brink of not war but hostility with current day government. So actually, let's see what it would be like. Channel is under construction. It is said channel might be completed in a couple of years, and let's see what is the result. I don't think it's a big source of hostility, war between neighboring countries. No one in Central Asia wants to have a war problems or relationship with Afghanistan, but it is not at the same time the reason. Afghanistan, for example, now I'm noticing how they have a kind of self-admiration. We want America, we want NATO. So this is a kind of a mindset which is no good in the future. Central Asian governments do not afraid of Afghanistan, frankly speaking, because the level of preparedness to war, we have a good security, collective security and other system of balancing Afghanistan. But the problem is how to put this country into the peaceful road. But it is impossible until Afghan government itself decide to come to an agreement in a host of issues between Central Asia and Afghanistan. Thank you.
Dr. Kaisar Bengali.
Thank you. I'm as a Bengali, and I was 3 years working with Chief Minister Balochistan, and this was a proposal that kept coming up for discussion of building a direct railway line between Gwadar and Helmand province and make Gwadar the principal port for Afghan transit trade, and it will also help develop the southern Afghanistan. I would like Dr. Salman Shah and Dr. Wang to maybe comment on what they think about this proposal.
Will the two gentlemen online respond to the question?
Absolutely, but I couldn't hear the question. Could you please repeat the question for me?
The proposal that has been floated, not officially, but it was discussed in Quetta, to construct a railway between Gwadar straight north connecting Helmand, probably on the city of Sangin. Your comment on this?
Well, I would love to have a look into the proposal itself, but to give you my general opinion on that, I think it's a great idea. You know, I am in the favor of any road, any railway, any project that would bring the two countries together, that would bring two people together. In fact, previously, the governments of Afghanistan, and I had the honor one time in 2019 and 2020 to lead the trade negotiations from Afghanistan side. We actually also proposed that, you know, a dedicated highway to be built from South Afghanistan to Gwadar. And I think there has to be a time, there has to be a moment between Afghanistan and Pakistan or South Asia and Central Asia where we can practically take those steps. So I think it would be a great idea to have the railway connecting any city from Pakistan to Afghanistan all the way to Central Asia, or vice versa. Like we have now a project coming from Tashkent to Mazar and Mazar to Kabul and Kabul to Peshawar. But as I said again, you know, we have challenges as well. And politics is one side of the story. The second side of the story is corruption. I think our bureaucrats, people who are managing trade affairs in the countries, along with private sector actors, are not allowing this dream become a reality because of the status quo and because of the interests they have. So we have to combat corruption. And third, finally, we have to build capacities within the region, in Afghanistan, outside Afghanistan, Pakistan, all these countries, so we can actually achieve these dreams. We need investments, we need people, and we need systems to connect for real. Because otherwise projects are just projects, and we need systems and securities and guarantees and assurances and a lot of confidence and a lot of trust between the two countries or between the two regions to actually embark on this journey. The sooner the better. The late we become, it's going to be damaging to all of us.
And now the gentleman on that side. Can somebody give a mic? Oh, okay. Maybe he can ask his question also, and then.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a single question to whom it may concern. I'm from Germany, as I said yesterday, and I'm interested in German-Afghan questions, let's say it like this. Germany have welcomed thousands of young Afghan people, and my question now is concerning the development of Afghanistan in the next 2 decades. What do you think these young Afghan people could play a role for the development of Afghanistan and also for the connectivity between Central Asia and South Asia? Thank you.
This question is open. Who would like to answer this? And Dr. Kesar Bengali would like to have a response from Dr. Wang also on the same issue.
Chair, if I can briefly answer the question just asked.
Yep. Please go ahead.
So I think the role of young Afghans is very much important, and I think this is not just limited to Afghanistan, but the young people of South Asia and Central Asia is the future. In fact, our children are the future. So it is very much important to note the capabilities and the energy that the young people have in South Asian and Central Asian region, including Afghanistan. In the last 2 decades, we have been able to educate and train hundreds and thousands of young Afghans. Yes, a good number of these young Afghans have left the country in the 2 years, but I can tell you for a fact that hundreds and thousands of young Afghan men and women are still in the country, still in Kabul, and still in other parts of Afghanistan. They have made the choice to stay in the country, and it would require a collective approach to move forward, being the reality and living in the reality of the aftermath of August 15, 2021. And we believe, and the young people in Afghanistan believe, that opportunities sometimes are given, but sometimes opportunity has to be built. And I think the Afghan youth and young people has the capacity and capability, whether they are trained and educated in Afghanistan or trained and educated in our neighborhood. Thanks to Pakistan, thanks to other countries, a lot of young Afghans have been educated and trained, and they have the skills and the capacity, but it is not enough. And it is not enough to achieve what we are trying to discuss here. So my point is that yes, the willingness or the capacity of the young Afghan people is one, but at the same time, we also have to push for a larger open environment in Afghanistan and in the region so that these capacities and energies can be used and utilized effectively. Otherwise, just like Dr. Ellinor mentioned earlier, any disengagement or isolation would actually push many young people to go on the track of radicalization or any of the consequences of no economic incentives in the country. So I think connecting back to the global financial system is a priority. We have to talk about it. Afghanistan deserves to be connected with the global financial system. In the last 2 years, it has received and managed huge amounts of capitals. So if there is a will for those funds to be managed in Afghanistan, I think that can go beyond the humanitarian aid. We do not need aid. We need more of trade, and we need more of business. There's plenty of business that Afghanistan can offer, and the young people of Afghanistan can offer. So definitely, my colleague from Germany, the Afghan youth will take significant part and role in the next 20 years. And people who have decided to stay in the country will have significant chances and a huge role in the coming years to play. Yes, there are challenges, but we cannot stop and we have to move forward.
Now I've received a note. Unfortunately, we are running short of time, and we have time for 2 questions. There are already 4 or 5 hands here. All right.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Mohammad Faisal Awan.
You'll get your chance. My request is please ask questions very briefly, and the answers, it's difficult to give a short answer to a question which requires some detail, but please try to be brief.
Thank you very much. A couple of comments, and then I would like to ask Suleiman a question. I heard Professor Ahmed Rashid presenting a very dismal picture of what is exactly happening in Afghanistan. I would like to slightly disagree with him because I think one of the problems with intellectuals at this age is that they get fixated with certain types of I usually call them intellectual syndrome. So I think at this age he's also get stuck with Taliban syndrome because maybe the memories of Taliban of 1990s present him the kinds of images that he has in mind that makes him get stuck with Taliban syndrome. But I think he tried to step on the same water, whereas being a realistically speaking, you never step twice on the same water. Water has changed, although even if you don't have, you have not changed yourself. So in the last 20 years, I think it's very difficult to fight war. And Afghan peoples have been fighting war since last 40 years. And fighting a war, especially with monster, is very difficult. And in the last 20 years, it's not that Taliban fought the war, it's the Afghan people which fought the war with, this monster. And this war has changed not only Taliban or the Afghan people, it has changed the monster as well. And because of this change, we saw the peace process and, the Doha, Qatar process, and we saw the agreement coming out of it. So I think what I'm saying is things have changed a lot. So what we need to do is to avoid the pitfalls of our discursive understanding of what is exactly happening in Afghanistan. So I think I would like to ask Suleiman about this thing. It is because of this kind of newness in the Taliban's approach towards the problems in Afghanistan and their relations with, their neighboring countries. They have better relations with Iran. They have better relations with other countries. China is, investing in Afghanistan. China is a smart country, does not invest so easily in different, other countries. So I would like to ask Suleiman, have you noticed, because we have come across in newspapers and books as well, that this is not the Taliban, this is the second version of Taliban. So I would like to ask Suleiman, have you noticed anything concrete in terms of their changes in approach towards their problems internally
Let's
and
do
externally?
one thing.
Thank you.
We'll take 2 questions from students, and you can ask your question, then we'll get the answers in one go.
This is Saqib Mehsood, student of IR at Karachi University. My question from Dr. Ellinor. Keeping in view the instability the political instability in Afghanistan, is it possible to create regional connectivity in the South Asia? Or the second question is from Suleiman bin Shah.
Please ask one question.
It's a short question, ma'am. What do you think ISKP is a big challenge for Afghan government and the China, who is openly opposed the Wuhan corridor? Thank you.
You can answer Dr. Faisal's question, then Mr. His question, and then the same question. He's asked 2 questions.
Thank you. I think Dr. Faisal asked an important question, and this is always a discussion whether the Taliban 2.0 or the new Taliban are different than the Taliban we used to see in 90s. I think let's look at it from a very different perspective, so that we don't get caught in the whole political debate. We should make a distinction between the Taliban movement and also the interim Taliban administration. Now, the interim Taliban administration, of course, is highly influenced by the Taliban movement and the ideology of the Taliban, which Ahmed Rashid earlier, tried to talk about. I also disagree with him on certain things, though I have read all his books, and I loved reading his books. But today, I think I disagree with some of the things he said. So there has to be a distinction between the administration and the movement. Now, if I look at the last 2 years, yes, I have seen significant changes in terms of the narrative, in terms of the thought process, and also the direction that has been taken by the ITA during these 2 years. So yes, there is a considerable, I would say, change now that we see, among Taliban members or people who are now part of the government. This is very natural. When you are secluded or isolated from the society, and when you return back to the normal society structures that we have in Afghanistan, I think this is a very natural consequence of that. The second is the technology. I think technology has developed so much, and the role of social media and online media has also a very huge role in terms of bringing this change. So yes, I would say that there are significant changes.
Dr. Wang is going to answer Dr. Kaisar Bengali's question, but my recommendation is that you ask the question and you will get answer for one of your questions. I think your question is also for Dr. Shah. Please answer his question as well if you've not forgotten the question.
I think, yeah, the second question, right?
The second, the student who asked the question.
Yes, I remember the question. So with ISKP, I mean, if we analyze the last 20 years and compare it to the last 2 years, there has been a significant, action taken on the Taliban side to contain ISKP. There has been an official counter-terrorism arrangement between the US and the Taliban as well on fighting ISKP. The Taliban have contained, any major attacks in the last 2 years, but yes, there are concerns, and there are valid concerns over the presence of extremist groups in Afghanistan. But then again, we also have to take into consideration the geography of Afghanistan and the reality of Afghanistan, resources and capacity of a governance system and law enforcement system in Afghanistan. I think that's also weak and have been weak for the last 20 years. So I feel after 2 years, we need to give some more time, some more breathing space, as we have just come out of the war, of losing 700 people on average a day in the last few months. That would take some time, and we need to strengthen all forces within Afghanistan who can counter terrorism in Afghanistan or in the region. So thank you.
May I now request the Chinese scholar to answer the question asked earlier?
Hello? Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. So it's me. It's Alexander Wang. But now we can answer the Dr. Kassan the questions just now because just now I can't hear it. So, but actually the Dr. Kassan's problem, the questions about the railway from Guad Airport to the Helmand. So, first of all, as I know, the information on this railway now is very little. So we have no enough details on this railway. That's the first one. The second one, I trust connectivity between Pakistan and Afghanistan is not from the technology side. So actually, currently, maybe we can say in the past decades, the main obstacle for the connectivity between Pakistan and Afghanistan is political. But even we know now the main border port between Pakistan and Afghanistan is the Chaman border. So actually always closed by the political reasons and or so-called security reasons. So actually I ever visited the Kandahar province. I visited the governor of Kandahar province and the police chief of Kandahar province, but they always say that they have no any problem to connect with Pakistan, but they know there is some of the political conflicts between the two nations. So I guess maybe if we have any connectivity plan between these two countries, I guess maybe the first of all to solve the political conflicts. The third, please understand, this railway plan always need a very huge amount of investment. It means we know our Taliban government now has, I trust definitely they have not enough the public finance funding. And I guess maybe the Pakistan government has also not enough money. So who can provide loan to this plan? So until now, I guess maybe I cannot see any prospect by this railway. But if we can talk this railway, actually I prefer to discuss the ML1 railway in Pakistan. I guess maybe this priority in transportation in Pakistan. So it's my answer, Dr. Kassar. Over, please.
Dr. Zeino would like to respond to a question. And as far as the students are concerned, I will recommend one thing to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I will be very brief in my answer to the question referring to regional connectivity, the prospects for South Asia given the instability paradox. I'm not sure if your question hinted to ISKP, TTP, but I think this security threats is only one obstacle to regional connectivity in South Asia. The other obstacles, I think Sulaiman mentioned very well, it is future political and financial stability, stability of investments. But I would like to raise only one point. I think the main point to foster regional connectivity in South Asia is to keep regional proxy wars and regional proxy war thinking out of Afghanistan. This is, I think, the only way forward, and I think we need a joint effort from the neighbor countries to Afghanistan to go beyond that thinking, to keep Afghanistan out of this proxy war thinking. Thank you.
I think students should have a very strong voice in all the seminars. Your mistake is that you waited. You should have put up your hands and asked questions before any of us could do that. So what I recommend now, corner the speakers when you are having tea or lunch. Ask them as many questions as you like. I'll be away. I'm leaving.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude this session, I would like to express our gratitude to our esteemed speakers. I request Dr. Talat Wazarat to please present them with shields as a token of appreciation. First to Dr. Ellinor Zeino. Now to Dr. Mukhed Asanbayev. I would also like to express our appreciation for the speakers, Mr. Salaban bin Shah and Alexander Wang, for their contributions. Now I request Dr. Ellinor Zeino to please present Dr. Talat Wazarat with a shield. Tea has been served. Please join us for the second session after half an hour. Thank you.